Okay, hi everyone. My name is Progress. It is lovely to be here. This is the last session of the Young Black Female Conference, which has carried on throughout the month of March. And I've had various speakers from different backgrounds speak on different topics. And today I am hosting the 5 off the cuff women, who are brilliant women from different vast, diverse backgrounds and expertise and professions. And so they are going to be talking to us on different topics. Each of them are going to speak on one theme each. We're going to have the first speaker, which is Dr. Elizabeth. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself and tell us about all of her brilliant work and things that she does. And then we are going to crack on with questions. The second speaker is, so we have 2 Elizabeth. One, I'm going to call her Dr. Shaw, and then the other one is going to be Elizabeth. So Elizabeth will be speaking on personal brand. She's going to unpack a lot on that. We also have Shalom, who will be speaking on entrepreneurship and growing your business and a lot of that. And then we're going to have Edith, who will be speaking on employability, how to make yourself visible, your CV, and how to package yourself in terms of gaining employment. And then our last speaker, Precious, is going to be speaking on resilience, building resilience and the challenges and how to overcome them. So without wasting much time, because we only have 1 hour, I'm going to invite Dr. Shaw to introduce herself and just crack on right now. Thank you.
Wonderful. It's great to be here with our wonderful, 5 off the cuff. And I'm a part of this fabulous group of strong, inspiring women who, we come together to have these conversations that are really impactful, important, meaningful. And this leads towards impactful action and outcomes. And, supporting you here today is one of those impactful actions that is really dear to our heart and important for us to do. 1,000 Black Voices particularly supports founders and professionals from our community, from the Black community. We're really about closing that racial equity gap in support, investment and progression. And so we connect individuals to talented jobs in organizations and also to investment. So these are some of the things that we do. And I think I just want to start out by just asking everyone that's on the call to type out what your superpower is, because I just want to start out with that first. So can you type in your superpower? I'm looking at the chat, so I'm going to wait for you, give you a few seconds to put that in. And you can all do that, right? You can all type something in the chat. Can you see that right at the bottom of the screen? I know we've got a couple of people here, so don't be shy, we can't see you. So, put in your superpower if you like. Do you think you've got a superpower? There we go. It's open, right. Thanks, Progress. It would be great to see that you're interacting and you're listening to what we're saying today. Can't see anything. Okay. Well, I think mine is the ability to share ideas. Thank you, Progress. Okay. Well, I guess I'm asking you the question because when we're talking about the various different things that all 5 of us are touching upon, your superpower is going to have an impact on all of those 5 main areas. So just wanted to know a little bit about that. And then I want a base point to know what you think about leadership. What is your one word in describing or defining leadership? Again, I want a base point before I start having conversations. So, Progress, you might as well share. I don't see anybody else sharing. Go ahead and put something in. And actually, seeing as we can see you, Progress, you might as well say what your superpower is and what your leadership values are. Right. ability to carry others along, right? All of these, aspects that are highlighted here, sharing ideas, ability to carry others on, it's all part of leadership. And I guess we've got 5 wonderful ladies here. So I'm going to say my superpower, I say, is empathy, and popcorn to Elizabeth. Superpower?
I'd say my Spider Woman instincts, being able to read the room.
Right. Popcorn on. Edith.
Gosh, I think mine is just really spotting talent and being able to develop that talent.
That's cool. Shalom?
Mine is connectivity. I think connecting the dots. I think that's what my superpower is.
Yeah, so you see that all of these superpowers that have just been highlighted to you are all very important aspects of moving forward in your field as leaders, as individuals that want to progress in the workplace, or starting up a business. So it flows through all of that, and you can ask questions about what these superpowers are in depth if you like. If I just give you a quick, before I hand off to another of our wonderful.
Can I interrupt? Hello, Ms. Shaw. My superpower is
you're
going against the grain.
Cool.
I'm like,
Great.
am I
going to turn up.
am I like hiding or something?
There you go.
Hi, everyone. Yes, good to see you all. Mine is going against the grain.
Cool. And yeah, and give us a little bit.
Just like you just did right now.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like sturgeon, going against the current all the time. But there you go.
Actually, that's a great segue into thinking about a leadership game play, right? So we're talking about some of the things that I've got to talk about is, first of all, when you're thinking about seeing a pattern, for example, don't just think it's the right pattern to go with, or it's the right idea to go with. You've got to start thinking about, well, this could be wrong. What other perspectives are out there? And so going against the grain is key for that. Connectivity is key for that. Everything that we've talked about is key towards developing an idea, bringing different perspectives on board. And you then have to evaluate those various different perspectives, proving whether they're true or not, what's factual. I know we've been having conversations, haven't we, in the news and various different social media and that all of that, about what is actually valid information, what is fake news, what do you actually share on TikTok or share on social, and where does that information come from? Do you collect that data yourself? And as leaders, it's really important to think about, well, how do you evaluate information that you've got? How do you ensure that you understand how to make decisions based on the information that you're getting? Okay, and so these are key elements of what leadership is about. I would suggest, before I hand off, building a one-pager perhaps of a business case, really to think about capturing benefits of the results of decisions that you're making, and also thinking about the risks and opportunities of those decisions before you actually implement them. So, do not think that you can't change your mind when you're having conversations with people. This is about you engaging with other people, bringing empathy, understanding how they feel, to ensure that you bring perspectives into your decision making. And yeah, I'd say build that. That's a practical aspect. Build your one pager in that sense. But what would you think? I suppose, Shalom, what do you think about when it comes to how you connect the dots as a leader, or as an entrepreneur, or as an individual, a young person? How do you go about connecting dots?
I think connecting dots is all about self-awareness. I think it's being able to understand oneself. When you understand yourself, which can be sometimes difficult, then you almost have the ability to understand other people. Everything we do in life is about relationships. So I think that from a leadership perspective, for young people, certainly, Being able to communicate is key. Being able to listen is key. When you listen to your audio, when people feel listened to, when people feel understood, you're able to gain more information. And that information you've gathered from one person will help you connect them to somebody else or to something else. So that's where the connecting the dots come from. You cannot connect the dots if you don't listen, if you don't know yourself, if you don't listen, and if you don't step back and actually digest and understand. So that's part of listening, I suppose. So that's the nugget I have.
Yeah, thanks. Anyone else want to jump in on that, really, from your perspective? Cool. Well, that answers some of the questions around, I think, networking as well. You know, whether you're an individual that's just starting out, you know, as early in your careers or middle or later on, it's really how do you go about thinking about networking? And it's challenging, it can be challenging, but you've got to go in with some, and I said my superpower is empathy, trying to understand what other people are thinking or what their challenges are or where they want to go and what their particular vision is. And with that, sort of frame a way of how you can help that individual to achieve that. And in that process, you're then developing the relationship that Shalom talked about to actually then think about moving forward. So yeah, I think that's something of what I want to share right now. Thanks for input. Progress, I'll hand over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I wonder if we could ask questions before we go to the next speaker, or should we save all the questions for the last?
However you want to do it. How do you want to progress with that?
Okay. Well, I think just to ask questions based on the topic might make more sense. My question would be, what are some challenges that comes with leadership, and how do you overcome them?
Well, I guess we talked about managing information. So those are some of the, some of the challenges. You as a leader or individual, you have so much information at your fingertips. How do you make sense of it? How do you know what direction to go in? How do you know, again, whether this is valid? Are you going to actually review all information? And that's going to be very stifling, right? It's going to stop you actually moving forward. So these are some of the challenges that you've got to really consider. And in a sense, perhaps it's not about being a perfectionist. It's really about, well, it's got to be good enough, but it's also got to be values-based. And it's got to be values-based because you've got to be in touch with what are your key values. Are you engaging with others that share those particular values? And how are you going to ensure that the outcome is also values-based for those that you're serving in the marketplace or serving in your organization or serving, as friends and family. So that's how I'd get around that.
I'd like to add to that, sorry. I'd like to add to that, just on the values piece that you talked about, Elizabeth. I think that's a really critical area to focus on, actually. And bringing in what Shalom said about self-awareness. So I think that if you're very self-aware, but also your values are inherently intertwined in the way that you lead, you'll always be able to revert back or always circle back to who you are. So I think staying authentic is probably the hardest thing in that leadership space. Really understanding, and where you face challenges or where you go ethical or moral dilemmas, being able to make that stand and say, do you know what, this is what I am about. And this is what I truly believe in, but also the self-awareness to be able to temper that conversation in a manner that the people that are receiving it, it's not offensive, but equally, you're still able to make a stand and still stay authentic to who you are and your value system. So I thought I'd just add to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely, because I was just saying that there's so much information out there. There are lots of different perspectives, but again, for us in our communities, are our perspectives being heard? Are our perspectives visible? You need to think about how you speak up and be part of the conversation, but also think about having sponsors, allies that can support you in standing firm in kind of your conversation and what you stand for. Yeah, thanks. Really, thanks for this. Yeah, Precious.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to move to Shalom now. I think the first one would be, how do you tell if you need to dive into entrepreneurship or stick to your 9 to 5? Because everybody wants to be a CEO or a founder, but how are you able to kind of discern that is what you're meant to be doing? Entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Very good question, and thanks. My name is Shalom Lloyd. I am a pharmacist by qualification, and I consider myself a serial entrepreneur. Before we go into the question about sort of entrepreneurship versus the 9 to 5, I think it's really good to define, or for me to define, what entrepreneurship is to me. Entrepreneurship is really simple. For me, it's about setting up a business or businesses for financial gain or profit. And what adds the entrepreneurship piece in there is the risk taking and the hope that what you're doing will end up making money. So people think that entrepreneurship is all about actually just starting your own business, but you can be an entrepreneur within your 9 to 5. So you can wear that entrepreneurship hat as a business owner, like you say, people wanting to title CEO, whatever, but you can also be an entrepreneur within your 9 to 5. That certainly was the case for me. In my 9 to 5 role in the pharmaceutical industry, I would come up with ideas, different ways of doing things, be it process improvement, innovative ways of changing things, all in the aim of making more profit as well as taking risks. So it's the same definition, whether you're an entrepreneur within a corporate environment, 9 to 5, as you call it, or if you're running your own business. So I've worn the hats of both sides. And actually, the experience that I got in the corporate environment gave me the credibility, the information, the experience, the capacity, the capability to be able to do that for myself. So whereas some people think, I just want to be an entrepreneur, and that means starting my own business. Sometimes going through that entrepreneurship journey in a 9 to 5 environment can be the foundation or building block that will lead you to do that by yourself. Does that make sense? So I don't necessarily think, for me, it's right to say an entrepreneur is only the person that has started the business of their own, taking those risks in order to make profit. That's my view.
Right, thank you. How were you able to identify your skills and transfer them into income?
Unless you're running a charity, unless you have a not-for-profit organization, surely everything you're doing as a business should be to generate income and make money, whether you're an entrepreneur in the corporate world or whether you're running your own business. So for me, it's really about making money all around. I believe in, as you're making that money, is doing good in the process, having purpose and impact, because purpose and impact actually just help generate the profit. The reason why I would recommend, actually, if you're doing a 9 to 5 job, actually honing in on your skills is that, like myself, those skills help me to set up on my own. Sometimes people think about entrepreneurship and think, "Oh, start my own business and make a lot of money." It's to ask yourself, what is the business you're starting? What question is it answering? What value is it bringing? If your business is not solving a problem, adding value to in whatever respect, then yeah, it will not generate income, in my opinion, anyway. I mean, even buying and selling, if you're selling something, anything that you're selling must be adding value to somebody for them to purchase it. So for me, the skill set that you have to learn, you can learn in a corporate environment. Resilience is a key one. Obviously, hardworking. There's a thing that I heard. I came back from Nigeria a few months ago, and there's a phrase that I love that I heard: adulthood is a scam. it really is a scam because nobody prepares you for adulthood. Nobody prepares you for that responsibility. The same thing for entrepreneurship. It sounds amazing. It sounds great. Oh, I want to be a CEO. I want to have my own business, etc., etc. But again, purpose, impact, value. What value are you adding in whatever shape or form? That for me is what counts, really. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. Thank you. I think what you said just reminds me of what a friend said to me, that starting a business is like having a baby, and then you have to like start from scratch. You have to watch the baby grow. There's sometimes that baby can even hinder you from like going out or doing, like having a flexible time. And also one of the challenges is like you're unable to separate personal life versus work life. So like having a work-life balance is almost a challenge because you are the founder, you are the CEO, and you basically have to like in the morning you're working, like it's hard to separate.
It is. I wouldn't say being a mom, I wouldn't really say is the same as having a child, to be honest, or having a baby. Because they're two different challenges, but let's not go there. What I do agree with, though, is that it requires sacrifice. And I can, a lot of the ladies on this call who are sisters, who are friends, who are strong businessmen can testify to that. Most of us have left a lucrative corporate 9-to-5, as you call it, even being entrepreneurs in that environment and started our own business. So you kind of, that safety net of a paycheck, a monthly paycheck, right, goes away. Therein lies the risk and the sacrifice. Yes. And the thing is that if you're willing to work extremely hard when you're employed by someone, then you should be willing to work double that time if you're working for yourself. Therein comes a sacrifice, absolutely. In the startup phase, it's a crucial and crazy phase of any new business in that entrepreneurship journey. The startup phase is mental. And tapping into, it all ties in about everything we've been talking about. Your network is truly your net worth. When you look around on this screen, I till today, every day, tap into one of these women because they have a skill, they have something. Even if I'm having a crazy day and they've been through it, they want to calm me down, etc. You have to have a good network around you to get through that. It's a roller coaster ride.
Thank you. I'm gonna move to Elizabeth, who'll be speaking on personal brand. So my first question would be, what is personal brand and how can someone build that?
Right, yeah, so hi. So I'm Elizabeth Anyaegbuna. I am part of the 5 Off the Cuff wonderful ladies here. I'm also a co-founder of 16 by 9, which is a media agency that focuses on marketing and sort of agency advertising. And I do a lot of stuff there, as well as stuff in the D&I space, particularly for women and women of color. And I'm president of Bloom, which is a network within Marcom, so marketing and comms for women, where we look to pursue everything that we need to pursue, but ultimately equal treatment, and everything that kind of comes underneath it. So on the topic of personal brand, and in fact, actually listening to Shalom and Elizabeth and Precious. One thing before I go into that, but I think it's sort of key to highlight is that being a leader or being an entrepreneur, certainly if you're the person at the top, CEO or co-founder or whatever you choose to call yourself, is it can be a lonely place, because a lot of the time, particularly even just listening to these questions, it's very much like, so how do I do this? What do you do here? What do I do? And most of the time you're fixing or, pipelining or searching or hustling or whatever it is, and it can actually be a lonely place, right? So you do need your tribe or your village or your network or your 5 off the cuff, to kind of provide that support, really for you. So you need to find them. It could be in family, it could be the people you're working with, whatever. You need that support network, as you network and build whatever brand, your brand and how you're going about it, whether it is in 9 to 5, taking the entrepreneurial route, or as an entrepreneur, or even both, because we do have side hustles as we work in corporate worlds, anything in between. Looking at personal brand, I mean, it's kind of unique, and I don't think there's like a one sort of like shoe fits all. So, personal brand is personal. Why you've got that word in front, but it's kind of like a combination of skills, I'd say, sort of like your experience, your, who you are. And I think ultimately, what stands you out? What's your niche? What's sort of unique to you? And the way you then go about that is establishing that, or certainly defining it, being very clear in that, so there's not too much noise, so people aren't kind of confused. I mean, if you think of, sort of big, names like Oprah Winfrey, or even, Michelle Obama, you could kind of very clearly sort of understand what they sort of stand for, but at the beginning, Oprah was moving about a little bit before she ended up, where she has. So, you certainly have to identify your strengths and your values, and then what is unique to you, and hone in on it. So develop a very clear, simple sort of message, I would say, and not get too sort of caught up in needing to do too much. And then, it's about authenticity, so you can't sort of try to develop a brand that is not yours, because people see through that straight away. So it's certainly something that needs to be unique to you. And then once you kind of, establish that, is this sort of how you, I guess, message that, outside, whether it's online, whether it's doing this sort of thing, your business, does it reflect who you are? All that stuff. So it should be woven through, really sort of what you sort of stand for. And then networking, of course, again, how you sort of, turn up, really, and stay authentic and true. So I would say sort of it's very powerful, but it's one that needs to be clear, simple, and defined, I would say, and definitely authentic.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to double click on a point that you mentioned, which is networking. A lot of people find networking daunting. Like,
Yes.
You go out, you meet people, especially if you're an introvert, like you're not very used to like meeting a lot of people, or like the energy in those spaces can be exhausting. So how do you go about networking? Because it's something that we need. Like, how would you advise that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a great believer in network, and I am part of a few. Be careful not to be part of too many, because that can be exhausted in itself, but I think you kind of just, you sort of develop it, and sort of cut your teeth on it as you go along. So at the start, say, for example, if you're going to begin to network, first of all, you just seek these networks, and generally, because some people don't even know where they are, right? Or think that they are all in this ether somewhere, and you're not sort of maybe sort of thinking about your network could actually be closer to home, whether it's family or friends. Like, I'm sitting on this call, although we are all in different sectors, we are in a network, and then what will then happen, say, for example, is the way to ease in, I would say, and there are many ways, is to go with someone, or go with a person who maybe is more connected within that network, to kind of just ease you in, right? And then I would say I personally think that you develop a skill, right, as you go along. But if someone is an introvert, they're an introvert, right? And then if someone is an extrovert, they are. And not all networkers need to be extroverts, and vice versa, really. It's just about how you own your space, really. So you don't need to talk a lot in order to land a particular point, right? In fact, I particularly enjoyed those that don't talk too much, but they are kind of like your, very kind of like, they just land a poignant point, whereas the others are all sort of talking over each other, right? So in other words, don't put too much pressure on yourself, right? I definitely would say start off by seeking out a network where there's something of a connection with you. You go to that network hopefully, or potentially with someone else, or at least connect with someone sort of there. And then you just take your time and you chip away and you sort of build at it, you know. The way I look at it is, what's the worst that can happen? That's how I look at it. You know, I just walk into the room. I have no idea who this person is, you know, and I do go armed with certain things that most people will have a view on. Holidays, the weather in this country particularly, you know, and you're in a network area which probably has a theme. So if you've gone and sat down to listen to something, what did you think of that? Do you know what I mean? So you kind of go on with some of those kind of conversational nuggets to start off with, right? You know, and just take it from there. You know, now it can be uncomfortable, but if you've got a wingman or a wing woman or a wing person, you know, then it can kind of ease in. But don't put your pressure on yourself. It is, some people are, you know, can walk in and start to deal with it straight away, and others just need to take time. Ultimately, you know, it's just about, you know, not putting the pressure on yourself, I'd say. But they are, go with the friendly networks to start off with so you can cut your teeth on it, I'd say.
All right. Thank you very much. I think I have a few more questions, but I'm going to come back to you with them after the other speakers. The next speaker is Edith. And she's going to speak on employability and talk a lot about how to make yourself visible and how to stand out in recruitment.
Yeah, hi, Progress. Really good to be here, particularly it being International Women's Month. So thanks for having us at the close of that. My name's Edith Udemezue. I have been in talent acquisition, life sciences specifically, for the last 25 years. Probably a bit more than that, but I don't want to age myself, you know, really too much. I have a strong passion for developing people. I mentioned that as being my superpower. Really passionate about that. Also very passionate about diversity and making sure that we're encouraging and bringing forward talent that is kind of severely underrepresented, you know, in our market. I think that, I mean, really, everybody has covered a lot of things which are really, really important at this time. In making yourself visible, I think just taking all the tips that Elizabeth, actually, that you mentioned about, I wrote down understanding your personal brand, being authentic, really emphasizing all of that and being clear, simple and defined. So on point, really important. It's incredibly competitive out there. Professional networks and social media platforms, they provide a lot of access to ways in which you can promote your skills and experiences. But it's truly about catching the recruiters. How are you really going to catch a recruiter's attention? So you do have to make sure that your profile is up to date, that it's not too crowded, that you're engaging with your network, that you attend industry-specific events. We've all talked about networking, and you're going to hear that recurring throughout the session. It is important, you know, building the right relationships is really important. Reaching out to the people who are in your field, who are in the field actually that you want to get into. And it can sometimes be a bit intimidating, yeah, of course. Platforms like LinkedIn do make it easy, to be fair. It's very easy to connect and follow, but make sure that you like a comment, make sure that you post a comment in response, because that will also get you noticed. The other thing is actually just look, I mean, Elizabeth, you mentioned, look closer to home. Look at your family, look at who they know, because they may well know people that they can actually connect you to. Look at your friend network. The other thing is to also get in touch with a recruiter who is working specifically in the areas that you want to get into, you know, really as well. So, you know, the other thing is, you know, just really look at what your CV looks like. You know, I'm a firm believer in keeping your CV concise and making sure that it captures your essence. You know, 2 pages is ideal, but in the same vein, you know, I've seen 4-page CVs that look great. You just have to make sure that it's tailored to the role that you're applying for. You've also got to showcase your achievements. Saying that, for instance, that you've got a strong sales background is one thing, but saying that you grew revenues by 25% over a period of 12 months is much more specific. So, you know, just be specific and use those numbers, and make sure that you use the terms that are going to enable you stand out if a recruiter is searching for a profile on LinkedIn. So, you know, make sure that you understand the terminology that's used in the field of work that you want to go into, in a nutshell.
Yeah, just very quickly, are there certain things that you need to know or keep in mind when you're going for an interview, like how to prep yourself when going for an interview?
Do your research. I mean, that's just elementary. I think sometimes, you know, you can underestimate how frustrating it is to an interviewer when you turn up and you actually haven't researched the company. Research the company, research the people who, try and find out who you're going to be interviewed by. Look at their profiles on LinkedIn, see where they've been, you know, really what they've done. Find out the latest news about that particular organization, try and refer to it during the interview. You know, if it's in the life sciences space I know really well, you know, have they launched a new drug? Anywhere else, have they opened a new site? Have they made changes to their leadership team? Just try and get some little snippets. Look professional. Lots of interviews happen via Zoom still, so it's still really important to dress the part, well, at least the top half anyway. And of course, you know, if it's face-to-face, it goes without saying, you know, look the part for your industry. So what works in a corporate, probably very formal environment may not necessarily work in a startup media company, for instance. So you just really need to understand the organization that you're going for. Read through the job spec thoroughly. And I always say that look at all the responsibilities, accountabilities for the role, and then try and have maybe 2 or 3 examples for each line, and be prepared. Prep yourself. Prep yourself in front of a mirror, in front of a friend, in front of, you know, somebody that you can trust, and write down your responses, and as I say, you know, really practice them. Read through your CV. And the number of times I've interviewed somebody and I bring up something that's on their CV and they struggle to be able to give me any examples, you know, really specifically around that. So make sure that you can elaborate on any areas that you're questioned on, and make sure that you really actively listen. I think somebody mentioned, I think it might be in Shalom, but, you know, there's listening, but there's actively listening. You know, you need to really pay attention to the questions that are being asked. There's nothing worse than somebody going off on a tangent. And be succinct, you know, try not to ramble. Nerves can sometimes, you know, have a little bit of an impact, and interviewers are understandable about that. They understand that. So in the same vein, just try and keep your answers, you know, fairly concise.
Right, thank you. I'm going to move to our last speaker, Precious, who's going to speak on resilient and building resilient.
Hi, Progress. How are you? Hello, fellow ladies. Yes, so my name is Precious, and I identify myself as a woman in construction. I mean, I've got many identifiers, but in this instance, when we're talking about building resilience, I'll talk more around that aspect, which is construction. So I've got 22 years. I'm not as old as Edith. I'm joking. But 22 years of industry experience in construction, and part of that really resonates so much with this resilient conversation. And having worked in the industry for that long, you have to always draw upon probably your inner strength when you're struggling so much, not because you're unable, but because there are challenges that you face within the industry. And the challenges that I will talk more around is around as a woman. So I'll only just start with that one identifier as a woman in construction in an environment which is very, very male dominated. I've had to draw on strengths that I didn't even know that I had. So when I look at the definition of resilience, it's mainly around facing hardship and actually reframing your mindset to be able to face that hardship and draw on strength to be able to push through those barriers and those challenges. So I don't necessarily, frown or shy away from those challenges. In fact, when I talked about my superpower, I talked about going against the grain. It's something that I've always done, I suppose, as a matter of fact. It's something that comes naturally, and I like a challenge. So resilience for me is something that I think a lot of people should try and build within the way that they engage and the way that they work and the way that they interact, because there's so many challenges. I mean, Shalom talked about entrepreneurship within an organization, and entrepreneurship when you're owning your own organization. That alone requires a level of resilience that, you know, you don't even prepare yourself for. As a business owner, I've started to discover areas of strength, or even pulling from the inner strength, I suppose, levels of energy or even strength that I never ever thought that I had. So resilience for me is really critical, because you can either then give up quite quickly if you don't reframe your mindset to be able to face some of those challenges, or you can then build strength and go against that current, go against that current or grain as a sturgeon. So that's my take on it in terms of that whole building resilience conversation.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned this as well. Women are often made to feel like they are doing too much in certain spaces, because I guess maybe people are not very used to seeing women at the forefront of things. How do you show up in a confident way without coming across as rude or like, yeah?
I think there's a challenge around that whole confidence. There's a toss-up between confidence and arrogance. And I think that whole self-awareness piece comes through. Again, reading the room, knowing your audience. It's very easy to be perceived as cocky if you are not using the right, I suppose, tone. Tone comes in really, really strong. So I'll use the example of actually working in the industry itself. Anytime I got necessarily, I suppose, the term emotional came out quite a bit. Passion was what I was showing. So you can show passion and it can be perceived as quite emotional. You understand? So again, it's being able to temper and read the room, use the right tonage to make your point across, not to be perceived as emotional, but actually and pull the people that are in that conversation to understand your viewpoint, that you actually, it's a more passionate rather than an emotional conversation that you're having. And then when you talk about that whole women piece, I think it's not falling victim. That's one thing I didn't fall for in the industry, not falling victim, that because I'm a minority, I'm a woman around a table of men, and eventually I'm a minority, that I didn't feel that was a disadvantage for me. In fact, I saw it as an advantage around the table, you know, because when you did speak, if you were speaking sense or you were speaking a really salient point, then people listened to what you were saying, by virtue of the fact that the expectation was already set that maybe you couldn't add a lot of value. So just being able to read the room, use the right tone, and be able to respond in a manner that, you know, it pulls everybody in the room together.
Yeah, thank you. One more question would be, I think one challenge that makes us less resilient, I guess, is competitive behavior. How can women and also like young people overcome competitive behavior? Because like you have the internet and everybody's doing great, and you might easily just give up instead of like trying, because you feel like, you know, you have a long way to go or you can never get to where you're going. So how do you overcome competitive behaviors?
Do you know, I actually have to say, because I've got 2 children, my eldest is going to be 16 this year, and social media for me is a massive issue, I think, for young children at this day and age. When we grew up, you know, you'd only see your friends in it physically. You wouldn't have all this pressure of, you know, having access to so much information at the same time. So I think for me, really around building, what I would say to any young person coming through is, as they say in this day, stay in your lane. You know, stay in your lane, because a number of people, we're constantly looking behind our shoulders. Have that racehorse mentality where you've got your blinders on, you know exactly where you're going. Don't be influenced too much. As easy as it is to say, building resilience is really understanding that sometimes what is actually on social media and what is actually being presented to us might not be reality. You know, so teaching our children, and I say this to my daughter all the time, that sometimes you've got to understand where it is that you're going. Don't worry too much about what's happening around you, because you don't really know the story. Create your own story, and in creating your own story, you build those frameworks, or you reframe your mind to be able to deal with the pressures that are true pressures, true hardships, true stresses within your own environment.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm going to open the question now to people that are on the call. If you have any question, if you're comfortable speaking, please feel free to unmute yourself and speak, or you can type your question in the chat as well. We're gonna have to stop now. I just want to express my gratitude and just a big thank you to these wonderful women who have been very generous with their time and with their knowledge and expertise, just sharing and speaking on the various topics that we've talked about today. I really appreciate you, and I'm also very happy that I'm ending the conference with you, with your knowledge. They say you saved the best for the last, but I mean, I appreciate all my other speakers as well, and I'm really very, very grateful for all of you here. Thank you so much, Dr. Shaw, Edith, Shalom, Elizabeth, Precious. Thank you so much. And thanks to my attendees for coming. And those who registered and couldn't make it, hope you're able to watch this later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye,
Sam.
ladies.
Bye. 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 Bye.